field for Republicans looking to get the nomination for Illinois governor grows as Ted Dabrowski tosses his hat in the ring. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more. You can see the headlines at thecentersquare.com. GOP candidate Dabrowski enters fray to challenge Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. And Dabrowski made that announcement Friday outside of his home in Winnetka. And the gubernatorial candidates going into a field with others. And there's polling data that a pollster released showing a list of names. Some have not announced yet, but I think a big takeaway is this early on in the March primary, 55% of people don't know who they're going to support. So let's get into this. Ted Dabrowski on Friday sharing why he is going to be a candidate for governor here in the state of Illinois.
All right, good morning. When I chose to move on from my banking career 18 years ago and devote myself to public policy research in Illinois, I never thought it would lead me to this day. At the outset, I explicitly wanted to stay away from partisan politics and focus on presenting the facts and the arguments for policies that would do the most good for the most people. I thought if I made the most persuasive case, I would persuade the most people. That was a bit naive. I didn't appreciate just how much inertia was behind Illinois' bipartisan combine, as John Cass calls it. Well, after 15 years, I appreciate it now. What I learned over that time is that without a willingness to put in the fight, the political fight, the best ideas can be buried before they ever see light. If you want to improve conditions in Illinois, you have to understand that you'll be challenged by powerful interests who benefit from the way things are, which is, of course, why things are the way they are. I also learned that there are many people who only seek the appearance of change for the purpose of protecting the way things are. Today, I can spot those faux reformers right away. I had hoped that there would be others who saw what I saw and believed what I believed. Those who would successfully navigate the political system to lead Illinois back. Clearly, that has not happened. My time at the Illinois Policy Institute and WirePoints was amazing. I enjoyed putting in the work to learn the nuances of complicated policies like property taxes and pensions and healthcare and higher education. I gained great insights about how things work and why they don't. I've enjoyed traveling around the state to meet people fighting the policy battles where they live, because poring over the data isn't enough. You have to get out and get to know the people to see what's really happening, to appreciate both the successes to replicate and the failures to avoid. Let me give you an example of what I mean about finding success stories. There are 2 school districts in downstate Illinois, about 40 miles from East St. Louis, that prove you don't need gobs of money to teach kids how to read and do math. These districts are Aveston and Bartelso. In 2019, before the pandemic, 85% of their students could read at grade level. They had the highest reading levels in the state, higher even than places around here like New Trier and Deerfield. And here's the amazing thing. Aveston and Bartelso only spent $8,000 a year in 2019, the very lowest in the state. So I traveled down there to ask the teachers, the administrators, the parents, how they accomplished such a feat with such little money. And what I found was a culture of high expectations, parental engagement, a community of faith. And the people there said, we're competitive, we like to win. And you could feel it in the schools and the staff and the students. If we can find a way to harness even a fraction of that energy that they have in Aveston and Bartelso, we would transform education in Illinois. But whether it's improving reading scores or reducing property taxes or making college more affordable, just because you know what to do doesn't mean you get to do it. I am someone who has never been content about being right without making sure it's done right. That's why today I am announcing my candidacy for governor of Illinois.
So again, Ted Dabrowski there. You can watch that entire campaign announcement video at thecentersquare.com and take that in for what it's worth for you as we work through the March primary, because we still got months ahead. I mean, the candidates haven't even officially began filing their nominating petition forms, right? They've got that starts at the, I believe, tail end of October, and they've got a week to file those into the early part of November. And then after that, a week's worth of objections that the Illinois State Board of Elections is going to have to hash through. So we've heard DuPage County Sheriff Jim Mendrick mention. I mean, he announced way back in April, I believe. And you've got some other names that are out there that we're thinking about announcing or are in the process of announcing, but Dabrowski being one of those as well, who was considered to be a candidate and went to the Illinois State Fair, and we had talked to him then, and he just simply said he's going to make his decision at some point. Last week, we looked at some of the campaign financing, and Mendrick had $100,000 cash in hand, but Dabrowski had over $1 million cash on hand. So again, these are just some of the names you're going to hear. But there is a poll that came out recently that seems to indicate where we're at right now. And this is coming from the Illinois statewide survey. And we'll pull this up so you can read for this yourself from this research group. It says of Illinois likely election voters, you've got how many were surveyed? Over 1,000 respondents were randomly selected from a comprehensive list of registered voters. Results underwent a rigorous weighting process to align the sample with the expected demographic composition. You've got more about the polling data and more about those who conducted the poll, so you can read through that. But here's just some of the outcome of this poll. State direction. Illinois voters remain pessimistic about the future of the state. Nearly half say Illinois is on the wrong track, while fewer than 4 in 10 believe the state's moving in the right direction. So you can see that wrong direction is nearly half, with the right direction only about 39%, with 12% being unsure of the direction of the state of Illinois. So what about the candidates? Again, Darren Bailey leading 31%. He hasn't announced yet officially, I haven't seen. So 31%, I guess the next one, Jim Mendrick, 5%. And he's, again, announced that he's running back in April. And Ted Dabrowski just now announcing at 3% in the polling data. This is pretty early, way preliminary. Again, we have not seen the candidates actually file their nominating petitions yet, so we've still got that entire process to play out. So we'll know who the candidates are by mid-November to then ramp up for the March 17th primary. So you've got Darren Bailey, the former Republican candidate for governor, a former state senator, and a former state representative. He ran in 2022 in a pretty heated primary, and then went up against Governor J.B. Pritzker and lost. But since Darren Bailey obviously has that name recognition, being the former Republican candidate for Illinois governor, looks like that translates to him sitting pretty well at 31% in this preliminary polling. But then you've got Ted Dabrowski at 3%, and we'll see how this polling data changes as we go through the March primary. So other research that they have, head-to-head matchups, they also looked at with this polling data. You've got Darren Bailey versus Mendrick, 35% to 9%, while 50% are unsure. And I think that is also something that we have to highlight here in the overall, Republican primary ballot test. 55% are unsure at this time. And quite frankly, I don't blame them because we're still so early in all of this. But when it's a head-to-head matchup, Bailey versus Mendrick, Bailey takes that. When it's a head-to-head matchup between Dabrowski and Bailey, you've got Bailey leading that, but Mendrick taking 9%, Dabrowski taking 7%. But again, 51% are unsure. And then you've got the different demographic data of all of those who took part in the poll. So we're just getting started with this. The primary process just getting underway. Of course, Governor J.B. Pritzker a couple of months ago announced that he's running for re-election for a third term, but it's going to be a different ticket. It's going to be not Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton running with Pritzker for a third term. She's running for U.S. Senate to take Senator Dick Durbin's seat, who's retiring after the end of this term, so there's a primary there for U.S. Senate. Obviously, Republicans lining up as well with Don Tracy announcing that he's running for U.S. Senate as a Republican. And that's another race that we're going to have to watch. But Governor J.B. Pritzker looking for that third term, tapping Christian Mitchell to be his lieutenant governor for that race. So a lot more to come on all of this. Hopefully you stay with us and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for Illinois in Focus Daily. And we'll keep you updated on the latest on the political landscape as we head into the March primary. But obviously there's going to be plenty of other stuff for us to continue to cover with Illinois government. And keep in mind, we've got a veto session coming up in October. So that's something you're going to want to make sure you stick around, and we'll preview a lot of what to expect, and well, we could possibly see some tax increases as well. So all of that's going to play into the ongoing coverage here. The Illinois Freedom Caucus filing articles of impeachment against Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker as the governor says he's never incited violence. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. You can get the newsletter in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and sign up today. We're a free newswire service, and you can donate as well. So get details again at thecentersquare.com. Let's get right into it because there's tons of stuff to tackle this morning on the conversation of political rhetoric and where we're at in society after the assassination of Charlie Kirk Wednesday. Charlie Kirk, an Illinois native, born in Arlington Heights, 31 years old, wife, 2 kids. He was a conservative activist creating Turning Points USA with college campus chapters and high school chapters, and he did debates on college campuses and was pretty prominent with that. An event at college in Utah on Wednesday, September 10th, he was in the middle of answering a question in a debate in front of 3,300 people and was shot in the neck and died later that day. So it's got a lot of people on edge. And all of this, as also in Chicago, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker, who held a news availability yesterday and said that that's on top of people scared of immigration customs enforcement, enforcing federal immigration law. Here is Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at that news event talking about the fear people have that he's hearing about.
People are frightened about the potential of military troops coming to our neighborhoods. People are fearful of masked men in unmarked vans who could grab them on a street corner because of how they look or how they sound. People are scared to go to work. They're scared to take their kids to school. They're scared to go to school themselves or to go shopping. Last week, as you all know, the assassination of Charlie Kirk added to that fear, both about gun violence and about being killed for speaking your mind. This is a moment when Americans must come together and say clearly that threats and political violence are not the answer.
And the governor went on to talk about how it's incumbent upon political leaders to bring the temperature down.
Most especially, this should come from the top. Yet with each new crisis in recent years, we are reminded that we cannot rely on President Trump to tamp down the anger and the passion in the aftermath of political violence. Instead, he actively fans the flames of division, as he did on Friday, regularly advocates violence for political retribution, and in more than one case declares we are at war, not with a foreign adversary, but with each other. I don't believe any of that. Our people are not at war with one another. In these moments, real leaders offer words of solace and calm. Except for one, every president in my lifetime has done this in the wake of political violence. They take action for positive change. They bring people together. They make Americans feel safe. They let them know violence is never the answer. This is a watershed moment in our country. We can choose to stay silent and live in fear of more political violence, or we can choose to be loud for peace, for compassion, and for an America where people settle their political differences through free speech and at the ballot box. Let's be those people. That's the path Illinois chooses, and I implore the president to do the same.
And the president obviously made a speech after Kirk's assassination saying that political violence has no place in America, and vowed to hold those responsible accountable. And you've got the White House now taking their aim on what they called terrorist networks of people who are radicalized to commit violence. And what that's going to look like is interesting. The president yesterday was asked about Antifa and should Antifa be declared a terrorist organization. And he believed, that's the case, as they throw bricks at vans of ICE agents and burn vehicles in the middle of streets and so on. But Pritzker said that the threats are increasing in Illinois.
The number of threats that have come in over the last few days has been an enormous multiple of those that were coming in the days before. And we've seen an increase in threats in the state of Illinois over the last 7 years, at least since I've been governor, 6.5, 7 years. And not just about me. I'm just saying I think this is happening across the country, and it's happening in the state of Illinois. So, but you know, I want to be clear. I feel safe because I'm protected. My family feels safe because we're protected. But the truth is that the number of threats and the number of people who seem to want to engage in political violence has increased substantially.
So Pritzker ultimately saying that everybody needs to bring the temperature down, but obviously that's going to be something you hear from political leaders. There's still something about the finger pointing that's going on, though. I talked with Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie yesterday, and she gave her general thoughts about where we're at in the scope of political civility versus political violence.
The number of
And here is Leader McCombie from yesterday.
Well, it's everything that has been going on, progressively getting worse. I came in 2017, and our environment since then has even gotten so much harder to be in. Certainly several members of our own Illinois House and Senate have received certainly threatening messages, and it just has to stop. And the place it starts is with leadership. And I've been quick to call for the end of political violence, regardless of who it was, who was doing it, who was getting it. It doesn't matter your politics. It doesn't matter anything about you. But this political violence has gotten so accelerated that people are even wanting to retire, not wanting to run for office, not put themselves into the limelight. And that's really unfortunate.
McCombie also sounded off on Governor Pritzker, seeming to want political civility, but continuing to characterize a certain political persuasion in ways that are not very savory, some would say.
Well, I think in the case of our governor, he's running for a higher office than the governor. Although he stated, that is exactly what he's doing. It's not. It's obvious that he's trying to get on a national platform, and unfortunately, he has on several different occasions. Certainly, I would say, have people excited about. I don't want to say necessarily, well, I will. He's incited violence. You sit here and you call my caucus and Republicans around the nation Nazis, and you use that kind of language. Words matter, and it has to start with us leaders. And he calls for us to state that we don't want political violence, and I've been very consistent on that, Greg. But I'm also not calling my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, or anybody for that matter, names, associating them with evil. And unfortunately, the governor is. I think today, him saying that he's never associated us with Nazis. We have the receipts, obviously. He said it in the public forum. He said it on our own House floor during his budget address. And it's got to start with us leaders. He's just Only he can tone this down. And I wish he would, and I wish the priority was the state of Illinois and not the national spotlight. That's what taxpayers deserve, and that's what he's promised. And we have to stop this.
So McCombie saying that the governor incited violence. And we talked about this back in February whenever the governor gave his budget speech and State of the State speech. He spent a good 4 to 5, maybe 6 minutes or so talking about Nazi Germany, the lead up to Nazi Germany, and saying that Donald Trump had an authoritarian playbook. We'll actually hear some of that. But the Illinois Freedom Caucus yesterday filing articles of impeachment in House Resolution 466. And it says, whereas the governor of Illinois is engaged in conduct that is in totality of the circumstances constitutes inciting violence that is incompatible with the duties of his office, the House of Representatives is empowered through the Illinois Constitution to impeach J.B. Pritzker, governor of the state of Illinois. And it goes through some of the instances they say that is an incitement of violence. And one of those is from the budget speech he gave back in February. Here is the governor in a couple of clips from his budget speech.
Anyone who's doing.
And let's pull that up here.
The authoritarian playbook is laid bare here. They point to a group of people who don't look like you and tell you to blame them for your problems. I just have one question. What comes next? I'm not speaking up in service to my ambitions, but in deference to my obligations. If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
And that's just a couple of the clips. The Freedom Caucus resolution also goes into other public speeches he's made about what do you do with bullies? You punch them in the face. Also that these Republicans should know not a moment of peace. And that's also in the resolution that the Illinois Freedom Caucus filed. But Pritzker yesterday denies that he called Republicans Nazis.
Anyone who's doing that deserves criticism. And I think it's incumbent upon me as the leader of this state to tell people that we need to act with calm in this moment, that people need to act peacefully in this moment.
You have called Republicans Nazis.
No, I have not. That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
I'm glad you cleared that up because there are some.
Well, that's what they'd like to say. They're lying. They're lying.
I'm going to ask you to ask you that.
Well, that's not what I called them.
So Pritzker again saying that he didn't call Republicans Nazis. And I got a similar response from the governor when I asked him the day of his budget speech, why characterize half the country that voted for Trump as supporting a Nazi? And he gave me a very similar answer back then. But House Minority Leader Tony McCombie, leader of the Republicans in the Illinois House, seems to say, yeah, this impeachment article makes sense from the Illinois Freedom Caucus, a subset of the Republican Party. But McCombie acknowledges, as Republicans are in the super minority, this resolution may not go anywhere.
Well, this is a long time coming. I believe I've been on the road all day today, but I believe it's on the grounds of incitement of violence. And that certainly is apparent. Now, whether or not it will be called will be another question, as you know, we are in the super minority. But this is the overall frustrations of not only the members that filed the paperwork, but the House Republican Caucus, taxpayers, and notice that I say taxpayers, not Republicans or Democrats. Everybody is very frustrated and very concerned on where we're going to be going forward. So this is a result of what's been happening and accelerating over the years, like I said, even since I've been here in 2017.
So Tony McCombie saying that things have escalated and Governor J.B. Pritzker needs to be the leader in toning down rhetoric. You've got Republicans essentially saying that it's the rhetoric against Trump that is causing it to, in a way, reverberate more, right? I mean, how many times has Pritzker called Trump an authoritarian? How many times has the word tyrant been used? How many times has fascism been used by political leaders, not just Pritzker, but others? So Pritzker, yesterday, he said, he reiterated he's never called for political violence.
I have always advocated that if one is to protest, they should protest peacefully. I've always advocated that you should speak out, use your megaphones, your microphones, stand on a soapbox to do so, go to the ballot box. Those are all the ways that in politics we act. That's the way I've always known that we act in political life in the United States. And yet now we see, that there are people who not only act violently, but those who encourage that kind of violence. And in this, especially in this moment, we should be asking people to instead call for calm. And that's what I'm doing.
We'll see how this plays out. Of course, the impeachment resolution, House Resolution 466, you can go look that up and read it for yourself, filed by members of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, and how the rhetoric will change moving forward. We'll keep that out in front and center.
Go to Chicago early against Pritzker. Pritzker's nothing. If Pritzker was smart, he'd say, please come in. Don't let Chicago die. This is the guy telling me with great knowledge and so on. He said, don't let Chicago die, sir. It's dying. Don't let it die. I'm going to Chicago next.
It's President Donald Trump yesterday late taking questions from members of the media as he was traveling, saying that he is going into Chicago next. What is that going to look like with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson pushing back and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back? We'll see what happens here as we wake up each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of the Center Square, Illinois. You can go and find the headlines at thecentersquare.com and get the newsletter in your inbox. Just sign up for that, and while you're there, consider donating. We're a nonprofit newswire service, free and open to you, the taxpayer, to better understand how state government impacts you, and that's why we focus on Illinois. All right, so obviously Illinois has been a big deal with the ongoing back and forth between President Donald Trump in a second non-consecutive term and Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's running for a third term for governor, and obviously a lot of speculation that Pritzker's going to run for president. But President Trump, for weeks now, after using the National Guard in Los Angeles to protect federal people and assets while they conduct immigration enforcement, he also used the Guard in Washington, D.C. To clean up crime there. And earlier this week, he announced he's going to be using the Guard in Tennessee, Memphis, I believe, where they're going to help with cracking down on crime. All of this sparking the debate about the posse comitatus and the Insurrection Act and what authority does a president have to use the National Guard and what kind of level of local involvement should there be. These are things that the courts are going to be hashing out. And again, you'll be able to follow along at thecentersquare.com. We've got an entire team across the country following this stuff. So don't just focus on the Illinois page. You can also get the national headlines with your newsletter each and every day in your inbox. But you've got the president saying he's going to use the National Guard for weeks upon weeks. Governor J.B. Pritzker has made allusions to this being out of an authoritarian playbook. Other Democrats using the term authoritarian, and we've even heard the term fascism and so on. You can go down from there. But yesterday, Pritzker spoke to a group where he discussed the issue of immigration. He was receiving the Paul Simon Award. And this is an award that the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute gives. It's the Paul Simon Courage and Public Service Award, recognizing, as they say, a commitment to compassion and responsible public service. But the governor took the moment to address some of his concerns he sees coming from the White House.
And have us all pay attention today to the fact that there are invasions going on today all across the Chicago area into communities that live in fear. There are families in hiding. There are people who've been thrown into vans and taken away. this morning. And those attacks are increasing, starting today.
And the governor, again, talking about immigration enforcement, federal immigration enforcement. And you can go to thecentersquare.com and read up on what exactly is happening and see some of the evidence that DHS is providing. Kristi Noem announcing in Chicago that violent offenders were taken off the streets that morning with arrests for assault, DUI, and felony stalking. And you can see the DHS news announcement there, even with some of the worst criminally illegal aliens arrested by DHS since the beginning of what they called Operation Midway Blitz. You could see the mug shots and other photographs and details of the people that they've caught and the crimes that they're alleged to have committed. And again, these are legal aliens, illegal immigrants in this country. So you can read up on that. And again, also see the videos that were posted, including from Gregory Bovino. He's the U.S. Border Patrol Commander at Large, showing him pulling up to Chicago from I-55. Governor Pritzker, again, getting the Paul Simon Award for public service. He talked about how immigrants need to be essentially honored in the state of Illinois.
We should honor immigrants. We should not have our military, have our agencies of the federal government arresting people because they look different, or because they speak with an accent, or because they speak another language.
The governor is characterizing ICE's efforts as just merely going after people of a different skin color or people who speak a different language. When you hear what ICE officials are talking about, they are addressing criminal illegal aliens. And since in Illinois they're not able to cooperate with local law enforcement because of state law, you've got ICE that's taking to the streets, and that's going to make things a little bit more complicated. So the governor, taking a moment during his award presentation to talk about his concerns over the Trump administration, increased immigration efforts. But afterwards, the governor was asked about President Donald Trump the day before, saying that he is going to go into Chicago, alluding that the National Guard will be used. And here's what the governor had to respond to that.
Look, I have said before that you can't take anything that he says seriously from one day to the next. He's attacking verbally. Sometimes he attacks sending his agents in. Sometimes he forgets. I think he might be suffering from some dementia. And the next day he'll wake up on the other side of the bed and stop talking about Chicago. So I've never really counted on anything that he said as real. When he said that he wasn't coming to Chicago, I didn't trust that. When he says he is coming to Chicago, it's hard to believe anything he says.
Governor, obviously going off of some of what Trump has said and some of the other things he kind of walked back on, because several weeks Trump said, hey, I'm going into Chicago. We had a week's worth of news conferences from Democratic leaders condemning Trump and the idea of using the military in Chicago. And then moving on from there, it gets to where we got President Trump saying, well, maybe we wait for Pritzker to ask for help. Here again is the governor talking about ICE's actions and how he's got legitimate concerns.
I've been saying that since the very beginning, that actually they send ICE in here to cause challenges and mayhem on the ground. And you're seeing that when they go in as hard as they are, you can see that communities are reacting, as they should, with disdain, with great concern, protesting. But the harder the ICE agents come in, the more people want to intervene and step in the way of them. And when that happens, and when there's any kind of, touching or engagement with those ICE agents that involves, actual potential battery, that'll be the excuse. And it's wrong, by the way. They are causing it. It is the president. It is Kristi Noem, who wasn't even willing to answer questions today. She was here for a few hours, unwilling to answer questions about what they're doing on the ground, unwilling to tell us what ICE is going to do over the next coming weeks. What we know is that Gregory Bovino, who seems to be in charge of the operations here, has a history of acting in ways that are quite violent against people, many of whom are not criminals. They are grabbing people who have brown skin or who speak with an accent or who speak another language, and not people who are guilty of or are accused of perpetrating a violent crime. That's who we'd like to have civilian law enforcement go after.
But you've got the Trump administration recognizing civilian law enforcement has not gone after these individuals. ICE posting last night in Chicago's Operation Midway Blitz, Venezuelan illegal alien Santiago Cristobal Medina Cortez's final order of removal was issued in July of last year. ICE arrested him September 9th in Chicago. If ICE officers encounter illegal aliens during an enforcement operation, they arrest them. If you're in the country illegally, please self-deport. Learn more about self-deportation on our website or the CBP Home app. And you can see here the arrest of that individual as the video is shared by ICE. This came up a little bit with the public safety push during a U.S. Senate committee where FBI Director Kash Patel was questioned about a variety of things, including by U.S. Senator Dick Durbin.
Did you or Attorney General Bondi provide any individual with a waiver so they could remain employed after they received disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
I'll have to get back to you.
You don't remember that?
No, sir. My priority is protecting the American public, not getting into the weeds of polygraphs.
And to have a decent memory when you come before a committee.
I'm happy to talk about all the good work the men and women of the FBI are doing, including provided the lowest crime rate in American history. If you want to talk about how to protect the citizens, Chicago has seen a 30% reduction in its murder rate because of the men and women of the FBI.
You take credit for that?
I'll happily do that.
Patel went on to say that it's a credit to the interagency cooperation the FBI is having with the local law enforcement, but that's not the same story for ICE. You've got the Chicago mayor pushing back, saying that Chicago police are not going to cooperate with ICE. But President Donald Trump saying that all of the public safety issues means that the federal government is going to be coming more into Chicago. What that looks like, not sure, but here's what the president had to say yesterday.
A friend of mine who is a big railroader stops in all the cities. He knows every city. He said, sir, you have to save Chicago. So I'm going to go to Chicago early against Pritzker. Pritzker's nothing. If Pritzker is smart, he'd say, please come in. So last week, over the last week and a half, 11 people in Chicago were killed, murdered, and 38 were shot. And then Pritzker, and by the way, this is going on constantly. If they lose less than 6 or 7 people a week with murder, they're doing a great job in their opinion. Chicago is a death trap, and I'm going to make it just like I did with D.C., just like I'll do with Memphis. Now, remember this. So a man comes into my office, one of the biggest businessmen. I'll tell you, he runs Union Pacific. Is that big? Biggest railroad in the world, I guess. And he started off as a railroader. He was running a railroad, a little caboose. He was in a caboose. Now he runs the whole damn thing. 45 years ago, he started off in a caboose. I don't know what that's all about. And he became the top, so that's a good place to start. But he came in, he knows the country intimately. He's looking to do a merger by another railroad, the one where it had the little problem in East Palestine, right? And they want to buy that railroad, as you know. It's pretty public. But I sat with him and I talked. I said, so you know every city? Yes, sir. I go into every city, and I have for 45 years. I said, where would you go next? He said, St. Louis is in big trouble. He said, but Chicago is a great city. You can save Chicago, sir. Don't let Chicago die. This is the guy telling me with great knowledge and so on. He said, don't let Chicago die, sir. It's dying. Don't let it die. I'm going to Chicago next.
It's again the president yesterday saying he is going into Chicago next. If the state of Illinois doesn't address the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program error rate, you could see Illinois taxpayers paying $700 to $800 million in penalties to the federal government, and the alarms are raising. Good morning, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. I'm with you each and every weekday morning at 8 o'clock. You can join us for the live show where we tackle different things all throughout, but of course you can subscribe and get the latest segments here for Illinois in Focus Daily. And don't forget to get the podcast where you get podcasts to catch the show in its entirety without interruption. All right, let's tackle this next story here. As the Trump administration came in saying that they're going to put a big big, beautiful bill together, get Congress to pass it. It took several months, but ultimately President Donald Trump got it across both the House and Senate finish lines and signed that piece of legislation July 4th. Had a whole bunch of stuff in it, right? I mean, it is a, quote, big, beautiful bill. Democrats call it a big, ugly bill because it does things like, for instance, addresses subsidies for different types of areas, be it energy, be it food, and it also extended tax cuts that the previous Trump administration got across, making those permanent, brought about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, whole host of things, right? One thing it did was it shored up the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program funding and says that if states don't have an error rate under 6%, then they're going to have to pay a penalty. Well, that means that penalty could come from the state taxpayer dollars. And in a state like Illinois, you know, we've got legacy debt of pensions that the state says is about $140 billion, but ratings agencies say it's $300 billion. So, you know, you've got the budget crunch every year while the state continues to spend more money at a pretty significant rate. I mean, it's almost doubled over the past 7 years and has actually more than doubled in the past 12 years in how much the state spends every year. We're talking the numbers that I've crunched from the past 12 years. The state of Illinois has spent $100 billion more every year from 2020, the current budget, to back 12, 13, 14 years ago. Regardless, Illinois spending continues to go up. So it's probably going to go up even more if the state can't get its Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program error rate down. I talked with House Minority Leader Tony McCombie earlier this week about the error rate, and she's raising the alarm about where this is headed. Here is House Minority Leader Tony McCombie.
Yeah, and for the viewers that aren't living in our world, the error rate is the overpayments in SNAP, which is the larger part of the error rate, and then underpayments, which is pretty minimal on that. The concern that I have is rather than address the SNAP error rate, the governor is just willing to burn it down and blame it on Trump and say, well, he's the one who's cutting SNAP. Well, you're the one who has brought it into mismanagement. When Governor Pritzker came into office, the error rate was 5.73%, which is under the 6% that the federal government is going to be requiring. Now, under J.B. Pritzker's administration, it's at 11.56, and this could end up costing Illinoisans $700 to $800 million. Even if we went on an average, that would get us to 7.1%. I mean, we have to do something. By just not addressing it is literally going to take food out of our most vulnerable's mouths. So we have to address this. The governor has to address this, put aside his political attack on Trump saying he's cutting SNAP, gaslighting, scaring people, inciting anxiety, and handle the issue at hand. This is all on him, and certainly not the first example of agency mismanagement.
And again, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars the state's taxpayers could be on the hook for to cover that error rate. And the error rate, as McCombie said, includes the underpayments, people who didn't get paid enough, and the overpayments, people who got paid too much. And the people who got paid too much is the vast majority of the state's error rate. So a lot to be said about how to do that. And there was a House hearing not long ago of the U.S. House that was delving into this. And you can find that story at the Center Square as well, where U.S. Representative Mary Miller talked about getting the error rate down and having, a one state in particular that was being upheld as a beacon of doing it right and trying to get the error rate down and doing more with less. And you've got that ongoing effort. But in Illinois, you've got Democratic leaders who have been saying all Trump is wanting to do is to take food away from those who need it most in order to give tax cuts to the wealthy. That's according to multiple statements that Governor J.B. Pritzker has made in reference to President Donald Trump's policies of tax cuts and shoring up federal agencies. So McCombie says, this is just an ongoing issue of poor mismanagement by the Pritzker administration, as she highlights the SNAP error rate's gone up quite a bit during the Pritzker administration. And she says that it's indicative of other instances of failed management, and one in particular was the Illinois Department of Employment Security during COVID, where you had $3 billion go out to fraudsters. And again, that's tax dollars going out to fraudsters during the height of the pandemic. In the state of Illinois manages that employment system, just as the state of Illinois, even though it's federally funded, manages the SNAP program. But even the policies that the Trump administration enacted that Congress passed, again, law that is now law of the land, states are going to have to pick up some of the administrative costs of administrating the SNAP program. So that is going to cost all states millions and millions of dollars, if not more, every year to do that. But again, it's also this idea of the error rate. If it's not below 6%, states are going to have to pay the difference. And Illinois is sitting right at about 11.56%. So you've got to see that difference in the possibility it could be $700 to $800 million. Where's this money going? Here's McCombie answering whether or not there's just a lot of fraud.
Well, I think certainly we've seen already under this administration $5.2 billion, $5.2 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims. So yeah, certainly there's a possibility of that for the overpayments. It is not. We are not to be giving federal SNAP dollars to illegal immigrants, but we don't ask if they're legal. So is there an overpayment there? I don't know. But this is where we need to dig in, and this is where the administration needs to ask for help. He needs to empower his agency to say, hey, you know what? This error rate is well above the normal, and it's drastically increased under my administration, and we need to fix it. He needs to do that with his agency. He needs to empower them to do better.
We've seen a roundtable discussion that Pritzker held not too long ago, and you can find the video in the archive of this show where we unpack some of that. But they talked again about the people who are going to be impacted by this, and the new authorizations and the qualifications of who is eligible for this safety net program, right? I mean, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is to ensure that those who are of lesser means can have some food subsidies. Yeah, there's a lot of requirements you got to go through. You got to, prove either you don't have a job or you're looking for a job, or you're volunteering a certain number of hours a week, or if you're, disabled. And then there's a process of checking all of that and the qualifications. But again, another qualification being you can't be an illegal alien and get your food subsidies. And that's something that Congresswoman Mary Miller helped to get into the big, beautiful bill. And we talked with her yesterday about that. And here's some of what she said is just an effort to try to get local and state officials to shore up their administration of tax dollars.
J.B. Pritzker is a failed governor, and we have so much fraud and corruption in that program, but I'm very proud that my provision got included, and that is that if you are not an American citizen, you cannot be participating in SNAP benefits for one thing, or Medicaid for that, which J.B. Pritzker has rolled out the red carpet for that. He is giving them every benefit that should be afforded only to American citizens. But the other thing he's doing is issuing driver's licenses to illegals in Illinois. And I've got a bill that I'm sorry to say is going to cut federal funding for highways to any states that are issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens. These are people that do not speak the language, and they're using the driver's license, which has nothing on it to discriminate that this person is illegal, to go and get CDL licenses. I've been going to truck stops around the district and asking the cashiers, how many of the truckers come in here that do not speak any English? And the answer has been almost uniform. They tell me almost all of them speak no English. And this J.B. Pritzker is a danger. He's a threat to the citizens of Illinois, and he's making us pay in lives, in safety and security, and in tax dollars. Well, they care about power and they care about money, but the money gives them the power to implement their agenda. And what we're saying is you have to get in line with is particularly federal laws, or we are going to withhold federal funding. So, that's the pressure that we're going to put on J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats in Illinois.
And that's Congresswoman Mary Miller in a conversation we had live with her yesterday about federal funding and parental rights and some other issues as well, but just about the federal funding side of this. And while she calls Pritzker a failure, you've got Pritzker saying that Trump's a cheater, he's a failure, he's a convicted felon, and carries on with other negative comments on the president. So obviously that's kind of where we're at in this political debate. But we're going to bring it to you each and every weekday morning, and especially how you, the taxpayer, are impacted by federal tax dollars going to be used to change state policy and what that could mean for a state like Illinois. Because, listen, even the Trump administration is looking at withholding federal funds from states that have cashless bail or jurisdictions that have cashless bail, and Illinois being the first state to implement that statewide, where we don't have cash bail in the state of Illinois. Illinois could be out more federal funding if it still has that policy in place. So Pritzker's office extremely troubled by a photo with a suspect peacekeeper. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Find that headline at thecentersquare.com, where you can read about this photo that the governor's office shared on September 5th of the governor standing next to an individual wearing a peacekeeper's uniform. What exactly are peacekeepers? Well, it's a program that gets tax dollars to intervene in violence. And what they do is they get these grants, they take to the streets, they talk to young kids, they give them direction, and then they try to steer them away from violence. There's several groups out there: peacekeepers, violence interrupters. It's part of this community violence intervention program. Again, federal tax dollars used to go to that. The Trump administration trying to freeze those funds, but state tax dollars have been going to that to the tune of like $300 million plus to these community violence interruption groups. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with the Center Square. All right, so let's jump right into this story. Again, this photo making the rounds, and CWB Chicago reporting that Kellen McMiller is a suspect in last week's deadly smash and grab burglary on Chicago's Magnificent Mile and faces murder charges. Before the crime, McMiller was pictured with Governor J.B. Pritzker at an event promoting so-called peacekeepers, groups paid by tax dollars to help intervene in crime. Now, I reached out to the governor's office for comment, and they said that they are extremely troubled. They say that the governor meets with hundreds of people every week, and often he takes photos. They say they're extremely troubled to learn the individual is arrested for his alleged involvement in a serious crime, and we expect them to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Pritzker's office said the governor will continue to work at fighting crime, and doing so with these peacekeeper programs. It says that has a strong track record reducing violent crime by 41%, and he shared some link to a research article. Not everybody's on board with this. Former police chief for Riverside, Thomas Weitzel, he talked to Jim Talamonte about a different story of different peacekeepers being involved in violent crimes. Again, these are people who are meant to have tax dollars so that they go and intervene in crime, but they apparently, and we've seen this in the past, not just in the past couple of weeks, but even in previous iterations of this, these types of stories of individuals who are paid tax dollars to go and intervene in crime, and then they themselves are suspects in criminal activity. Weitzel says it's clear that this program is not working as intended.
When you see these individuals being arrested by CPD, and specifically, and they're also participating in violent crimes, I mean, what does that say?
Weitzel went on to talk about how this, idea that they're getting paid to go intervene in crime while committing crimes, it's a horrible outcome.
How about actually committing crimes while they're working? Or profiting from tax dollars? Because let's face it, it's a jobs creation program. That's what this is.
So you've got the critics out there saying these community violence interruption grant dollars are a waste, and they could go towards more police officers, more resources for law enforcement, and the like. I connected with Democratic State Representative LaShawn Ford yesterday to get his take on the issue of these peacekeepers, and is the program worth it? Does it actually work?
Well, I think the violence interruption grants, the peacekeeper grants have proven to work, not just in Chicago, but across the country, because what you find is it's a more holistic and collaborative approach. And so we know that even though crime is still in existence, it probably always will be. I mean, numbers show that the work that's being done by the peacekeepers, it's working. And so the answer to that is it's a good investment. Could it be improved? I think it can, but I don't think that it should be ended. And I don't think that we should be looking to spend less. We should fine tune the efforts and make sure that we spend the money in the areas where we know violence is high.
And you've got LaShawn Ford being in an area, west side of Chicago, where they've got concerns about public safety and they want to make sure that violence is stopped, obviously. But what about these stories of a suspect pictured with Governor J.B. Pritzker? Pull that picture up again. And what's interesting here is this is reportedly committing Chicago crimes. Pritzker's calling for more funding, but this picture that ultimately was shared around, again, you can find this at thecentersquare.com. I went into my email archives to actually find the picture, because the picture on the official press release posted online is no longer there. So this is from September 5th, and this is the online version, not the version that I got via email back on September 5th. So, picture of the governor talking about, a variety of things. He's meeting with community members. He's, speaking in front of others who are, looking at violence interruption.
We have one of the.
You've got, more pictures. And so, good array of pictures. But when I look at the actual email that I got from the governor, I printed a PDF of this morning. This is the email. And it does indeed have the picture that was taken off of what is now posted online. So you've got the picture there of the governor with this individual who's a suspect in that Mag Mile smash and grab that turned deadly. Interesting just to note that the picture was indeed taken down. But how the governor's office reacted, obviously, is they were extremely troubled that this individual was pictured with the governor, only later to allegedly be involved in a violent crime. LaShawn Ford says, yes, some things need to be retooled with the Peacekeepers program, and maybe some more checks on and verification of who is getting these dollars.
We have one of the priorities, and one of our responsibilities as legislators is to appropriate funds and to hold those that are receiving grants accountable. So we have to hold grantees accountable for taxpayer dollars, and we have to make sure that the people that are getting them are qualified and have a strategy that is proven to work. And now, should people that have previous convictions that have been reformed be allowed to participate in peacekeeper initiatives? I think that that's something that has proven to work here on the west side of Chicago, where we have people that have been in prison, served their time, have been reformed, and now they're out preaching to the young people that what they did didn't work for them, and they could definitely prove to them that if they continue to break the law, continue to be on the wrong side of the law, that they will too find themselves throwing away years and years of their life. So many times you have politicians and parents that try to talk to the juveniles and those that are delinquent, but we can't connect with them the way people that are actually in that space. And so I don't shut the door on people that have had transgressions in the past, but I say that we have to be very selective.
LaShawn Ford, state representative. He's actually also running for Congress in Chicago. We'll likely be talking with him more throughout the election as he gears up to head to Washington, D.C., but always somebody who's very approachable and willing to go on record and answer these types of questions. So appreciate his time. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. We'll be watching what happens with the Peacekeepers program. Again, find the headline and the picture at thecentersquare.com. Pritzker's office extremely troubled by photo with suspect peacekeeper. And you can get that photo in full res. It's a photo you paid for. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here with the Center Square.